This is Synastry part 2 because I've got actually today, after I did the first video, I got some questions of a student of mine that are actually pretty interesting, and I didn't integrate that in the video that I just did. So I'm going to hopefully explain a little bit more about the questions and about some important things I think of synastry as well. One question was, in the synastry, do opposites attract, or does like attract like? And what is best? I think that's a very interesting question. It's a difficult answer, I think. Although I think it's both. It's both. I don't believe in synastries that is all about oppositions or clashing, all kinds of energy. I don't believe in that. It can be fun in the beginning, but ultimately we're talking about people who want a long-term relationship, and not only long-term but also a quality relationship where they are meeting real love there. I think with having only oppositions and squares and all of that is not good at all. On the other hand, synastries where it's all fluently going well is not interesting either. So my experience is the following. I always look at actually the Moon and Venus when even all of the rest is clashing, especially the male planets. Mercury, I'll talk about that in a minute, but if male planets are clashing with each other or other planets, well, if there is a good understanding of Moon and Venus, which are the planets about love and relating towards each other, then there is just good vibes between two people, and they will tolerate a lot from each other. That's what I've learned throughout all doing synastries. So for instance, if you have like a moon in Leo and your loved one has a moon in Sagittarius, wow, that's fine. You understand each other on a deep emotional level because it's in the same element. Or for instance, you have a moon in Libra and your loved one has a moon in Taurus. Both of those moons are ruled by Venus, so you kind of need the same thing. So you would go towards that need of comfort, of peacefulness, and so on. So I would definitely, if the Moon and Venus are clashing with each other, there's not a lot of tolerance between two people. So that would be, and it doesn't have to be in the same sign. It can overlap. You know, the Venus can be on the Moon. Of course, there also can be the Sun and the Moon together. It's also very beautiful. Or the Sun and Venus together is also beautiful. Or even opposing, even in oppositions. I've seen people, that are very understanding towards each other and tolerating one another. So that's one thing. Then another thing is like, what else? Let's have a look at this notes here. Another thing that is, in my point of view, quite interesting is the following. If you have, when relationships do work, another thing that shows that relationships do work is when someone has a very difficult aspect in their chart. For instance, you have like a full square, or you have like a T-square, or you have an opposition, or even just one square. An interesting thing in relationships is that, and when they feel both of the people feel very good in the relationship, is when one person is activating that difficult aspect, but with a trine, for instance. So let's say you've got planets between Libra and Aries. So you have an opposition, for instance. You have an opposition between, it doesn't matter what kind of planet, but between Libra and between Aries. And let's say your loved one has planets that trines that Libra or trines that Aries. That is very, very interesting because the most stressful aspect of a certain person they get like this understanding, it suits them, they become less stressed, basically. So I've seen that also as well in good relationships, you know, good relationships where both people get the best out of each other. That is, in my point of view, a good relationship. And so when one person has those planets, that trines another difficult aspect. So that's also something to look for in a chart. And last but not least, Mercury. Yes, Mercury, of course, is the planet of communication, and communication is important for every relationship. So again, if there are stressful aspects with the Mercury there, so let's say your Mercury is squaring up to someone else's Mercury, I think this can be very tough, especially when there is a synastry going on with oppositions between the Mercuries or squares between the Mercuries, and there's nothing else that trines to it, or at least sextiles to it, then it can become a very difficult relationship, because ultimately it's about how you understand each other and how you communicate with each other. Again, look at the individual charts. If the individual charts are about people who are on an intellectual level, who find that important. Not everyone is like that, by the way, but people who find that important, and they have this clash in aspects, and there's nothing that gives a bit of support, you could say. So there is not a good aspect between Moon or Venus or something like that, or there's not a good aspect coming from that Mercury and going in and trying to a sextile with another planet. It becomes tough. It becomes really, really tough. So yeah, that was a bit of an extra there on synastry. I can talk for hours actually about synastry. Last but not least, there was this couple that came to me for synastry. And I'm talking here about what is normal, what is the standard. And I was so, it was a couple that they thought they had a good relationship, but it was the woman, and she was at the midst of her 40s. And she said, do I have to end my relationship? I was not really seeing something difficult or seeing something challenging. So I think I asked her, why do you think your relationship is not good? And she says, well, we are only having sex like once every 3 months or so. Yeah, and she read somewhere in a magazine, and she heard somewhere that for a good relationship, apparently you had to have sex like once every and fill in the blank. I find that so striking, and I find that so. First of all, I said to her, nothing is wrong with you, because I looked at the individual charts, and these were two people who were not really sex oriented, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, some people, again, it's about what you need and what you want in your life. If you've got some planets who are all, her planets were mostly in air signs, and again, it doesn't mean to say that you've got planets in air signs and you can have a Mars conjunct Pluto, for instance, and you can have a very strong sex drive. And again, there's nothing wrong with having a strong sex drive or having a low one, like these two people. But what I find very pitiful, you could say, is that they compare themselves with others, with the norm. You could say, if you are happy, just keep on doing what you're doing. If you're not, okay, then you can question. So, and they were like relieved. Okay, there's nothing wrong with us. Of course, there's nothing wrong. But with other people, of course, who've got like let's say a Venus in Scorpio, for instance, or maybe a Venus in Aries, that would be like having sex only once in 3 months. That would be a no, this is not possible. So everyone is unique. I wanted to stress that as well, and it was in this interesting email of my student as well. It is very much tailor-made, absolutely. It is she said it here in her email. It is very much tailor-made, absolutely. What is and that's why astrology is so objective. It's so like, look, this is what these people need and what they want, and some people need other things in a relationship than others. It's simply as it is. And so that was a little extra there on the synastry. Thank you so much for watching, and going to do the monthlies now. Bye bye.